Alliance prides ourselves on identifying topics of great interest, at least as we think, to the community, and trying to bring together experts to share their thoughts and ideas. We do try to have these sessions the third Thursday of every month at 11:30, and we think that one of the missions of the Berks Alliance is to really share thoughts and ideas from really across the country and the globe that we think might be of interest to the Berks County community. And we think that that's consistent with our mission. So we hope you find this presentation useful today. I think it's both timely and topical. So, and thanks to Dave for arranging this, and thanks to our presenters for their willingness to participate in this discussion. So with that, Dave, I'll turn it back to you, but thanks for the opportunity, and thanks everybody for joining the call.
Thank you, John. I am Dave Myers. I had the privilege of working with John, or for John, or both, for the Berks Alliance. And as John mentioned, we have been doing these community forums periodically, tried to do them once a month. This one we had scheduled back, I think, in March, and something happened that interfered with it. But in some ways, it's actually, Tammy and I were talking before all you came on, that it almost propitious that we waited till now, because the topic, I think, is even more timely now than what it had been. The way we're going to do this is we have 4 presenters. I'm going to introduce the moderator for the program, Tammy White, in a minute. We're going to ask you to mute your phones, mute yourself. There is a chat function. If you go to the bottom of the screen, you'll see it. If you have a question or comment that you'd like to share, we're going to ask you to submit it there. When we get done with the formal presentations, we'll open it up for questions and comments. I will go through that list of questions and comments to try to get them in front of the crowd. It's probably easier with the number of people that we have potentially coming onto this to do it that way. We have about 92 people registered for this event, plus our panel and myself. So we're very close to 100 people. So we ask you to cooperate and help us with that. But feel free to raise questions and offer your comments. We will share them regardless of whether they get formally asked or not. We will be taping this. Our friends at BCTV are also recording it and are going to be storing it on their YouTube web page, so you can access it there. And I think with that, I want to introduce Tammy White, who is the head of the United Way of Berks County, and going to serve as our moderator for this program. Tammy, to you.
Good. I guess it's good morning. First of all, thanks to Dave and John for this opportunity. And it's great to see so many familiar faces, even if I have to look at small little boxes to see all of you. So welcome. Just as a quick introduction, back in 2018, the United Way joined forces with the United Way of Pennsylvania and several other Pennsylvania United Ways to initiate a pilot that is based on something that was done first in Morris County back in 2009, Morris County, New Jersey. And the pilot in New Jersey was focused on research to identify and articulate the needs of economically vulnerable populations. And that's what ALICE is, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Just so you know, that the initiative that started in New Jersey now covers the entire state of New Jersey and is based in 20 additional states across the country. And from a United Way perspective, we are joining 600 United Ways across the country in terms of focusing on ALICE. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. First, I'd like to introduce Kristen Rotz. Kristen is the president of the United Way of Pennsylvania, and she's also serving as the executive director of PA 211. And we owe a lot of gratitude to Kristen because this really was her initiative, and her thought was it was really important for United Ways to rally around Alice. We also have from United Way today, Kristen Garris, who's the Community Impact Director for United Way, and Mary Jimenez, who is the Early Childhood Community Engagement Program Manager, also with United Way. And so what we're going to be doing today is Kristen is going to be talking to all of us about Alice as a statewide initiative, and Mary and Kristen are going to talk about some of the information related to the Berks County community and some of the work of United Way related to Alice. But before we turn it over to our speakers, we have a very brief video to share with you that was which was created by United Way of Pennsylvania. So Derek, if you could please play the video.
Meet Alice. It's the senior couple who lives across the street, the childcare worker who looks after your children while you're at work, the bank teller you chat with during your lunch break, the teacher who got your child interested in reading, and the 24-year-old nursing assistant who is helping to save lives every day. ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed and is an acronym for the 1.2 million Pennsylvania households who earn an income higher than the federal poverty level but less than what they need to afford basic living expenses. 13% of Pennsylvania households live below the federal poverty level, and another 24% are ALICE households. That's roughly 1 in every 4. These two groups amount to 37% of Pennsylvania's population, and every day they struggle to make ends meet. ALICE are proud, hard-working Pennsylvanians who pay taxes and are vital to our economy. They typically hold jobs that build and repair our infrastructure and educate and care for the general workforce. Many ALICE workers even have multiple jobs. But despite their hard work, ALICE struggles to pay their bills each month. ALICE has little or nothing in savings, and they are forced to make tough choices, like paying for quality childcare or paying their rent. A single working adult in Pennsylvania needs to make about $10.38 an hour, or roughly $20,760 a year to afford all household essentials. A family of 4, which includes 1 infant and 1 preschooler, needs to be making a combined income of about $29.67 an hour, or $59,340 a year in order to afford all household essentials. 32% of Pennsylvania families with children fall below this threshold. 59% of jobs in Pennsylvania pay less than $20 an hour, with more than half paying between $10 and $15 per hour. All the while, basic living expenses continue to rise. Over the past 10 years, Pennsylvania's bare minimum household survival budget has increased by 26% for a single adult and 33% for a family of 4. Because of these factors, the life that ALICE leads is volatile. ALICE's income tends to ebb and flow throughout the year, with some months being more financially stable than others. At any given time, ALICE households are only 1 emergency away from falling into poverty and needing some form of public assistance. This means that a car repair, a layoff, an unexpected medical bill, or having to miss a few days of work to take care of a sick family member could completely derail ALICE's financial stability. Can you imagine the stress of living on the cusp of such financial insecurity? There are many who carry that stress every day.
Like 50 emojis, and then
ALICE lives across Pennsylvania, in every county and every town, and can be found in every age group. If you are not ALICE, you probably know people who are. ALICE is essential to Pennsylvania's economy because they are the people that make it possible for so many Pennsylvanians to do what they do on a regular basis. That's why the United Way of Pennsylvania has launched the ALICE Project, an initiative aiming to shed light on a portion of the population that too often goes unnoticed, in hopes of changing the national dialogue about the impact on families and communities when financial crisis is the norm for so many. Traditional measures of poverty do not capture the magnitude of people who are struggling financially. This is why the United Way of Pennsylvania published the Alice Report, which provides important data for understanding who Alice is, where Alice lives, and the struggles Alice faces. The Alice Report provides hard data to shed light on what it takes to provide for a household in Pennsylvania. Using the data presented in the Alice Report, United Ways are better positioned to advocate for the health and vitality of Pennsylvania communities and work with partners to maximize donor dollars and volunteer efforts for the greatest impact. We must come together as partners to assist Alice on a journey to financial stability. Pennsylvania's local United Ways are poised to lead this work, and we invite all businesses, government, and community-based partners to join us. Through continued community investments, collaborations, and advocacy, United Ways remain committed to uplifting Alice and working towards solutions for all Pennsylvanians to have opportunities to advance their financial stability. Now that we are aware of the struggles Alice faces, we must take steps towards building a more secure and stable future. Will you join us?
Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. That video gives you a really nice overview of what the Alice Project is. And as you caught there, the acronym is Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. That's a mouthful of words. Really, the important thing to remember here is that Alice is everyone who's working every day. That's the key factor here. You are employed, you're going to work, you're earning an income, but you're not earning an income that puts you above, you are earning above the federal poverty level, but not yet enough to pay for all of your basic household needs. We make some assumptions about what those household essentials are. We have data that backs up the cost of those essentials specific to every county in our state. And this is a conversation starter. This is about a population who some of us have traditionally referred to as the working poor, but certainly that's a stigmatizing term, and we are working to bring a lot of exposure to Alice while also using language that reflects the value that Alice is to each of our communities. So we can go ahead and jump into the PowerPoints here. These statistics were highlighted in the video. These numbers are based on 2017 data. We are doing a data refresh this year. We are going to be updating our numbers to 2018 standards. And so these numbers are going to change a little bit, but overall, based on our numbers before, we have 24% of our households who fall in this Alice category and another 13% who do live in poverty. You can go ahead to the next slide. You heard in the video the statistics about increases in household budgets, and really what has happened and what has driven this, and what we have, others will refer to as sort of the hollowing out of the middle class, is that the cost of these household essentials has increased at far greater than the rate of either inflation or the average weekly wage in our state. So those cost drivers are healthcare, childcare. Those have both seen tremendous increases over the last 10 years. But really every aspect of the Alice household survival budget has increased at greater than the rate of inflation, aside from the cost of food. So that's why we see that overall the number of Alice households in our state increased by 14% from 2007 to 2017. We can go to the next slide. These are a couple of charts that tell the story a little bit in a different way. We call out some demographics here. The fact of the matter is that if you are Black or Hispanic in our state, you are more likely to be Alice than you are if you're a white Pennsylvanian. Now, while white Pennsylvanians are the majority of Alice in our state, it's disproportionate if you look at the overall percentage of our populations based on race and how many people within each race are falling into this Alice category. So this speaks to systemic racism and inequities that are built in and baked in, that are difficult to address, but are certainly impacting the overall financial stability of our Alice families, especially those from minority populations. Go to the next slide then. So this is a list of the top 20 occupations in our state. And as you look down this list, I want to call out that there are only 3 of these that would allow an individual to achieve the household survival budget. All the rest are paying at a rate which does not allow an individual to afford a household survival budget. The 3 that are registered nurses, the logistics category, and then also elementary school teachers. They're all earning wages which would allow them to afford the ALICE survival budget. Others are not. So you start to see that there's a significant portion of our population working in occupations that do not afford them a household budget on a monthly or annual basis. We can go to the next slide. So I'm going to walk you through the budgets now, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what the budgets are and how they come together, what they mean. And this is really our value assumption about what it takes to survive, as well as then a second budget, which will tell you what is sustainable in the modern economy. You can go ahead to the next slide. The first thing I want to emphasize to you is that I'm going to talk to you about the survival budget today. And this is the first tier that we look at, but it's really, really important to call to attention that this is not an aspirational budget for anyone. The survival budget truly represents only what it takes to afford the essentials. There's no margin for error. These are the families who live on the cusp of poverty. They're one emergency away from extreme financial vulnerability. So we don't want to just get people to the survival budget. We ultimately want to get people above the survival budget. But to measure a realistic take on what it does cost to survive, that's really what the ALICE budget, the ALICE survival budget is all about. So we can go to the next slide, and I think we're going to get to take a look at the budgets. And the chart that you're looking at here is specific to Berks County. We have 6 different household configurations broken out here. As you look across the top, you can see what those household configurations are. You look down the left side of that chart, you see what each of the components of the budget are. Just let me talk to you a little bit about these components. The first thing to understand is that this is a really, really conservative budget. Depending where you live in Berks County, you're going to look at that housing figure and you're going to go, gosh, you know, like it's next to impossible to find housing for that amount in some areas of Berks County. The food budget is based on the USDA Thrifty Food Budget. If you're not familiar with that measure, what that means is you're buying a lot of food raw and unprepared that you're bringing home. You have to cook a lot. This food budget does not encompass any going out to eat on a monthly basis. So this is a really, really conservative food budget. For transportation, we are taking into account an individual with a vehicle or family with vehicles. Berks County is one of most of Pennsylvania where mass transit is not really a viable option for a significant portion of the population. So that's why we are measuring this in terms of the cost of maintaining a car. You look down the list here, you see technology. You might wonder what that is. That is the cost of the most inexpensive cell phone that's available on the market according to Consumer Reports. And that's a new addition to the ALICE budget. The reason that's there is because for many ALICE occupations, that ability to be able to be reached by employers for work, not just for the job hunt, but for shift work and all kinds of things that happen in between during the course of employment, these phones are essential. So now that's part of the budget. You look here, you see that the taxes are called out. So when you look down to the earnings, those are gross earnings. And you can see across each of the household configurations what it would take either one adult or all adults in the household working to afford. That's the total bottom line there at the end of the chart. So again, this is not a stable budget in the modern economy. It takes one small emergency to knock ALICE pretty far into at least dire financial circumstances, because this budget has no savings in it. The miscellaneous category that you see there allows for about a 10% cost overrun in the overall household budget, and that's also intended to capture things like cleaning supplies for the household, you know, diapers, clothing, shoes, those types of things that members of the household are going to need in any given month. So again, this is just to survive. This is not an aspirational budget, but this is what it takes. And then we'll go to the next slide, which is going to show you the stability budget. This is a budget that we would call sustainable in the modern economy. There's a slightly more generous standard of living here, a little bit more room to spread out in the household, another extra bedroom. If you're an adult with a couple of children, your children now have the opportunity to each have their own bedroom. The food is the next level up on the USDA budget plan and also allows for eating out twice a month. So most of us usually eat out more than twice a month, but you can see the standard has increased a bit. There's additional technology costs in this budget. This budget does presume costs for the household to have an internet connection that was not included in the survival budget. And then the other big difference here is that you have a savings component. It's a 10% savings commitment on a monthly basis so that if and when an emergency occurs, the family is banked to help sustain that and help get them through. So again, this is a more comfortable budget, still not really an extravagant standard of living, but as you look across the bottom of the chart there, you can see what the total earnings of the household would have to break down to afford this budget. And for a single adult in Berks County, it's about $38,500 a year. And for the 2 adult, 1 infant, and 1 preschooler configuration, which is the most expensive configuration because of all the childcare costs involved, you're looking at a need to earn about $110,000. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. I just wanted to show you this so you can have some comparison because a lot of times we talk about federal poverty level, percent of federal poverty level, all federal, most public programs are geared towards federal poverty level. So, you know, you qualify for SNAP, you qualify for child care subsidy. Child care subsidy, you can get in up to 200% of the federal poverty level. And then if you're in by the time you earn 200% of the federal poverty level, you can keep your subsidy and it will scale down until you reach earnings of 235% of the federal poverty level. But as you look across this chart, you can see that many ALICE households who are still financially struggling don't even qualify for a key support like the child care subsidy. So this just brings to light that this is another factor in why ALICE struggles. This is another factor why United Way is trying to focus on ALICE. ALICE is the population who has been coming and asking for help, but having a difficult time qualifying for public services. So those of us who have flexible dollars to invest in the community can be really effective for ALICE and invest in strategies that will hopefully ultimately also not just patch the emergencies, but help ALICE move further along their path to financial stability. And then we'll go to the next slide. Keep going, we can go one more. These are some of the key issues that we are advocating for ALICE on a statewide level. This is one of the things that United Way of Pennsylvania does with our network across the state. We coordinate advocacy around public priorities, public policy priorities that affect the health and education and financial stability of Pennsylvanians. And as we moved into the ALICE data, this allowed us a new tool to advocate with policymakers. And certainly our economy is turned on its head right now, but this issue of, there are other barriers to employment besides just, do I have the skills I need? Can I get to work on time? Can I pass the drug test that's required to get the job? Employers are very open to talking about access to affordable, reliable transportation and access to childcare as issues that are impacting their workforce. And this was especially true when the economy was booming and employers were having a hard time finding workers to fill all their positions. We've got a demographic challenge in Pennsylvania with the aging of our population, which is also making it difficult for employers to fill positions. Certainly the economy has slowed now, but I think that these issues remain relevant because there is a significant portion of our economy where jobs have been lost. And in fact, our state fiscal office predicts that we have at this point lost about 165,000 jobs in our state that are not coming back anytime in the next 2 years due to COVID, and many of those jobs are in the hospitality sector. So these issues of addressing not just skills, but childcare is definitely a key issue that impacts how families can get to work, and now is further complicated by COVID Financially, child care centers are really struggling in many cases. And I think Dave was mentioning, even as we started the meeting, that one of his kids has experienced the closure of a child care center, and now they've got some real challenges ahead of them. And some families have the ability to work from home, some do not. These are all the things that kind of feed into inequities around Alice as well. I would say that one of the cool things though about COVID is that finally Alice got some of the attention that they deserve. Suddenly we recognized that among our everyday heroes are the people who are stocking the grocery store shelves and checking us out at the grocery store, and the nursing assistants that are working in healthcare settings, and the social workers who still have to go and support the homeless populations and others who have to be served even during a pandemic. So society recognized the value of people who we know as Alice, but a lot of these things around COVID have unfortunately also kind of reinforced the challenges that Alice faces. Without having the flexibility to work from home, they're also putting their own health potentially at greater risk than others. And then do they have the health care to support them through that? And there's just a lot of things here that compound the issue. We've also done a lot of work around workforce development with Alice. These are people who know how to work. They may be interested in other fields of work. They may be interested in higher paying jobs. So what are the educational and training programs or other things that need to be wrapped around Alice to help them advance in their careers? You can go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19. We are actually in the process right now of doing a survey of Pennsylvania families to learn exactly how COVID-19 has impacted them. We have a sample at this point that's past 1,300. We're continuing to promote that survey and are looking for responses through the end of the day next Monday, but that's going to be our first on the ground take of how COVID-19 has impacted Pennsylvania families across the state. But what we know from this picture I've already described to you is that 37% of our state's population already was not prepared for this rainy day. So they were working and they still were not earning enough to meet household essentials. Now they may not be working. They didn't earn enough to really prepare their savings cushion, so they're struggling. At this point, some of the fiscal analysis indicates that the federal government has pumped almost enough dollars back into Pennsylvania's economy to replace lost wages up through the early phases of this, but those dynamics are shifting as an extended unemployment compensation is ending, and we're going to see some other protections like the moratorium on foreclosures and evictions is scheduled to wrap up here at the end of the month if advocacy efforts to extend that are not successful. There are a lot of people who have been deferring and managing here for the last couple of months for whom some real significant financial difficulty is already amassing, but now the consequences of that are going to come home to roost for the months to come. So we're really preparing for a long-term economic impact in the work that we're doing with both United Way and with 211. The other key thing that also got some more focus this week is childcare. The state of Pennsylvania released a study that Penn State did, which shows that essentially a quarter to a third of the costs of continuing to maintain the childcare sector that we have today have not been realized through the increased state and federal assistance that has been provided, which means we have a lot of childcare providers that are at risk. And that calculation was only through Labor Day. So as we move beyond Labor Day, things will continue to worsen. And there's also the dynamics around school-age childcare and the challenges that that's going to pose for families and for childcare providers in the fall. So I think there's a lot more to come, and a lot more focus needs to be placed by all of us who advocate with our legislators on challenges related to childcare, because it is not just about how do we take care of kids today, it's about how our economy recovers over the long term. And then this reskilling, this idea of reskilling people who may lose their jobs over the long term, and figuring out what they do next to try to support their families. And many will need assistance with that. Many will need assistance with some of the upfront costs that can come with reskilling. So that's something we should all be thinking about as well. And I think the next one is my last slide. Just to give you a quick snapshot, from March to May, we saw 59,000 people contact 211, which is a Health and Human Services information and referral line available now all across our state. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. During this same period of time last year, our contact volume was roughly 41,000. So we saw an increase overall of about 43%. And I went and looked at least at our phone numbers yesterday. And just on our phone contacts alone, we're seeing a 15% increase from June through now. So we are preparing overall for a 25% increase in contacts at 211 based on financial needs and economic challenges from the pandemic. So we have always seen that food and housing assistance and utilities are the top requests at 211. That's continued through the pandemic, but on a whole different order of scale. Many more food calls than we normally get, many more housing and rent assistance costs than we normally get, and the same with utilities. A lot of people are also looking for temporary cash assistance, which is frankly hard and almost, non-existent in many communities across our state. So that's reflective of an unmet need. And we're also hearing at 211 from a lot of people who have never had to ask for help before. They didn't know where to turn. They turned to 211, which is absolutely our mission. And we're so glad that we're reaching people and connecting with people in that way. That's just another way to demonstrate we have the historically needy and we have the newly needy, is how I'm kind of breaking it down. So the newly needy lost work, may have kind of lived on this margin around the ALICE threshold, didn't have a lot of savings, have been trying to figure out how to make ends meet and keep all the household essentials stable for their families as they move through this challenge of the pandemic. So that's what our data at 211 shows us and what we can start to project. But please watch out for the analysis of our survey that we're conducting now. We expect to be releasing that publicly in the early part of September. And that's going to tell us a whole lot more about how COVID has impacted our state. So now we can just breeze through this quickly. You can go to the next slide. We do have a page on our website. It's at uwp.org/ALICE. There's an interactive heat map there. You can roll over any county and it'll show you the basic statistics for the whole county. There's a fact sheet. We actually call out by municipality how many people are ALICE and how many people live below the poverty level. So that's kind of a fun exercise. When I go to meetings, I like to challenge people to give me a municipality in their county that they think is pretty affluent. And then we go and we look at the ALICE numbers and we see 15–20% of the population still living below the ALICE threshold. So there's a lot of things here that can help facilitate conversations. That video that you just saw is on the website. We also have something called the ALICE Experience, which is more or less a virtual simulation of the life of ALICE. You can pick avatars across the state. You get to try to balance their budget as the income's coming in and the bills are being paid. And then the other thing it does that's unique is it has like a happiness factor. So you can't let your happiness factor get to zero. You can't let your bank account balance get to zero. And there are events that fly in and say, oh my gosh, you got a flat tire, pay this amount. There's a happiness consequence to that. So it's kind of unique in that you can drive at the bottom line in your checkbook all the time, but you can't ignore the fact that you're making difficult decisions to, not send your kid on the field trip because it costs too much money, and that has an impact on the overall happiness of your life. And go ahead to the next slide. So this is my contact information if anyone would like to reach out afterwards and talk any more about this. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the other Kristen to talk about United Way of Berks County and their impact work with ALICE.
Thank you, Kristen. You can go to the next slide and the next slide. So annually, United Way of Berks County invests in more than 50 local programs, assisting over 100,000 of our community members in need of support. 37,000 households in Berks County are ALICE. And while not all of our agency partners are able to provide detailed demographic reporting for clients served, from those who can, we know that 34 of those 50+ programs are serving ALICE, which represents at least 12,735 Berks County residents receiving assistance through United Way funded programs. A focus of many of these programs is to support ALICE. Next slide. These programs provide a variety of services to ALICE, including after-school programming, case management, childcare, ESL classes, access to food pantries, information and referral to community resources, mental health services, including counseling and advocacy, and transitional housing and shelter. Next slide. We're going to look a little bit more closer at our childcare workers. Not only are some of the programs providing childcare for families, but childcare workers in many cases are considered ALICE. The median hourly wage for a childcare worker in Pennsylvania is $11.02. In a bit, we're going to talk about our CDA program, and those individuals are earning on the lower end of around $8.10 per hour. In Pennsylvania, childcare workers earn 17% less than similar fields and typically make less than a teacher. Next slide. However, childcare workers play a critical role in our society. They have the responsibility of caring for other people's young children, keeping them safe, providing basic needs for infants and toddlers, feeding them, changing them, and nurturing our little ones. Childcare workers introduce important basic concepts to children through reading and other developmental activities. They help prepare children for kindergarten, and they support the development of language and social skills. Next slide. Childcare workers provide a safe, caring environment for children where they can learn and grow. They make it possible for parents to obtain and retain a job, allowing them to work and support their families. According to the Child Care Services Association, when parents have access to childcare, both labor force participation grows and also the potential for parents to return to school to increase their earnings over the long term becomes possible. Childcare providers are a vital part of our local and state economies. Think about the challenge of many families that have been facing during the pandemic when child care centers were closed. Can you imagine the long-term impact if we did not have childcare options for our families? Next slide, please. United Way of Berks County annually invests in programs that provide affordable, quality childcare in 3- or 4-star centers. United Way invests in Berks County Intermediate Unit to help subsidize the cost of childcare for families who do not qualify for state and federal funding but need assistance. So these are our ALICE families. It helps fill a gap for families to have access to high-quality Keystone Star 3 and 4 centers. BCIU provides childcare services to children 13 months to 12 years of age. They use the creative curriculum to establish the needs of a classroom environment. They also use PATHS, a social and emotional curriculum, and Letter People, a literacy curriculum. Looking at the city of Reading, most residents do not work a 9-to-5 Monday through Friday job, and they cannot afford private childcare. Opportunity House Childcare at 2nd Street Learning Center offers subsidized childcare 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., and weekends 6:30 a.m. until 11 p.m. So this childcare program is supporting not just those working first shift, but those working second shift and partial third shift as well. This center has achieved a star 4 rating, and for reading readiness, they work through the Reading Eggs program, and during the school year, they're able to provide transportation for children to their center. We're now going to talk about YMCA. The Pennsylvania Office of Child Care Development and Early Learning affirmed that 16,300 children in Berks County face a risk of school failure due to poverty factors beyond their control. YMCA's mission is to provide a high-quality educational program to all children, regardless of their ability to pay. And United Way's dollars help to make this possible at the YMCA Reading branch. This center also achieved a star 4 rating and provides high-quality childcare. They also use the creative curriculum for infants, toddlers, preschool, and school-age programs, which is developmentally appropriate, child-centered, and intellectually stimulating. And they also use the PATHS curriculum to promote emotional and social competencies. I'm going to share the story of just one person who's been impacted by one of these childcare programs. Her name is Ashley Schweitzer, and her life changed drastically when she went from being a stay-at-home mom to being a single mom of 3 children. To provide for her family, she needed to work, which meant she needed to find safe and affordable childcare. Berks County Intermediate Unit provided that solution. She could work and know her kids were in a quality childcare center. Because Ashley worked part-time, she did not qualify for financial aid through the state, and she was struggling to survive. As a working mom with limited income, United Way funding and the BCIU were able to help provide affordable childcare based on her income. Dependable childcare provided Ashley the opportunity to grow from being a part-time assistant at Reading Spine and Wellness Center to being the full-time office coordinator. I don't think anyone realizes how much it helped. I wouldn't have been able to grow and succeed at the company without the program, Ashley shared. 7 years later, she knows that her children benefited from this program. I provide for them 100% financially and mentally, and my daughter can look to me one day and say, Mom was able to do it, and so can I. And you can see this is just one story. There's so many other individuals in our community that are just on the cusp and need that additional support. I'm now going to turn the program over to Mary Jimenez, who's going to tell you more about United Way's CDA program.
Hi, good afternoon. As you've already heard, childcare workers or as I like to call them, teachers, are an essential group of individuals earning well below the survival budget we heard about today. Our program focuses on Star 1 and Star 2 centers. The goals of our program are to increase skills of ECE educators through the attainment of the Child Development Associate Credential, which can transfer to any state in the country, by assisting coursework through Reading Area Community College, wraparound support services, which include ESL support, encouragement, and connection to other needed services. Classroom coaching and modeling, which bridges the gap between theory and practice, and support to the finish line through the application process, which results in the CDA credential. Increasing staff retention is also important through our incentive, a stipend for education, which is equivalent to $1 per hour for the first year while taking classes, and later retention, which is equivalent to 50 cents per hour for 4 years following attainment of the CDA. Once again, as you've heard today, the incentive is great, but it's not enough to even meet the survival budget that was talked about earlier. Another goal is to increase English language proficiency and confidence, which results in better communication across the board. Through building relationships and trust, we have gained an abundance of knowledge about the child care centers we work with. Who are our students, you may ask? The majority are Latino women, making up 83% of our candidates. 90% overall are women, and there are a few men in the bunch. 90% are English language learners, with many not speaking much English upon beginning the program. However, by the end, they are demonstrating significant growth in this area. Single mothers make up 70% of candidates. Many are low-income poverty level, with 80% qualifying for state health and/or SNAP benefits. Many are intimidated by pursuing higher education without support, only having achieved a high school diploma or GED prior to entering our program. In addition, they work full-time while attending accelerated classes at RAC. They're faced with many barriers, such as lack of mastery of English, instability, financial instability, childcare issues, lack of family supports, special needs children that require extra attention. During this time, 2 of our candidates faced homelessness and 1 faced domestic violence issues, all of which we were able to assist with by connecting them to 211 and other services and providing them with support and encouragement. We also supported them through the COVID shutdown to ensure completion of the online classwork, which classes changed from partially in person and working online to 100% online, no contact. And also connecting them with financial resources such as unemployment and rental assistance. To date, we have completed 3 years and 4 cohorts of 42 individuals. 19 from cohorts 1 and 2, which were year 1 and 2, have attained their CDA credential. Currently, 22 candidates are waiting for CDA completion in cohorts 3 and 4, which would be year 3. Normally, cohort 3 would have been completed in June of 2020, but the process was disrupted by COVID, which placed restrictions on anyone entering centers other than staff and children. 4 of our individuals continue to work toward their associate degree in early childhood education. Our goal is to retain educators in their centers of origin. However, by increasing their skills, we are preparing them for better earning opportunities. Our current retention rate for candidates in their center of origin is 76%. Overall, we have a 90% retention rate for early childhood educators who have remained in the field, leaving their centers for higher earnings and benefits. A few have also left the area. Next slide, please. So, what does success look like for Jessica? Jessica tried to complete her CDA on her own. She had started some child development classes in high school, and then later she took some classes online to try to complete the education requirements without college credits. She found the application process difficult and was unable to complete it on her own. Our program helped Jessica attain her CDA by providing guidance and encouragement to reach the finish line. Since attaining her CDA credential, Jessica was able to secure a higher paying assistant teacher position in a pre-K counts classroom, while also staying in her same center, which provides pre-K counts classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So we've talked about childcare workers, and this is just a snapshot of one job that falls under Alice that we chose to highlight. Again, what would we do without childcare? There would be a ripple effect impacting so many areas of our economy. Childcare educators are such a valuable part of our community, yet these individuals live paycheck to paycheck, as do many other residents in Berks County. Alice workers hold jobs that are essential to our day-to-day quality of life. These are hardworking people in our community who do all the right things but are still struggling. We hope this information has been helpful to you, and we appreciate your time. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dave to open up for discussion.
Thank you, Kristen. And Kristen, Tammy. We had a few questions that were asked. One of the audience pointed out that she found statewide figures for the number of child care centers that have closed as a result of the pandemic, that over 165 approximately have closed statewide. Have we seen that problem in Berks County? Are we aware of centers closing, and if so, where?
I can say that from the childcare centers that we have been working with, the majority of them have remained open. They're just fewer hours, and the staff with state financial assistance, they have been able to pay the staff their regular hours, but they are currently preparing the staff that beginning September, they're going to get paid for only the hours that they're actually working. So at this moment, they're all up and operating. I do have one owner who had 2 centers, and she did not open her second center. She only opened her the one center. The other center is currently not open yet.
Tammy,
I'll just add, there's a big payment policy change coming, which is going to have a bearing. It's worth watching. The centers have been paid based on their kind of frozen enrollments from March when the shutdown happened. But starting September 1, that's no longer the case, and they're going to be paid for whatever attendance looks like. And as you know, attendance is not just driven by whether people are back to work, it's also driven by parent comfort level with putting their kids back into group settings. So there's a whole lot more unpredictability being introduced to the equation that's going to have an impact on financial stability of childcare providers. I believe the conclusion of the state study is that they could quantify 1,000 childcare providers out of the state's 7,000 that would be at some serious financial risk. The other thing that that study really called out is that the family childcare providers have been using a lot of their own personal resources, their own personal credit to try to keep their centers, keep their, that's what I'm looking for, just keep their childcare settings operational. So that's going to have long-term consequences as well. It's a really sobering thought.
And I would just add, and I know Dan is on the session as well. You know, a hot topic right now is childcare for school-age children. You know, particularly working families, those that work in all settings, but particularly manufacturing settings. And there is an effort to try to figure out how do we increase the availability of programs that can help parents while they work and can support their children, who many of them are learning remotely. So, you know, COVID has, you know, increased the demand for childcare, and I don't think any community is equipped for the demand that is necessary to help support working families. Dan, you want to add anything?
Amy, I think you covered it really well, but the opportunity and the risk here for us as a community is we've been hearing from at the Workforce Development Board from a lot of local manufacturing employers that actually have work that they could be, and orders they could be taking on, but they cannot fulfill because they're having difficulty filling open jobs. So many of these jobs are jobs that would be right at or taking you above those budgets that Kristen shared with us. But a lot of them are second and third shift. And so what they're telling us is that they're missing out on business now, and they're worried that in 2 weeks they're actively surveying their employee base to find out who's going to have trouble continuing staffing their shifts in the next 2 weeks as schools start to open in various capabilities. So it's a very significant economic development. It's really a shame in the pandemic if we have orders that our employers could fill, but they can't because of the disruption.
I know that, to your point, Tammy, that the Reading School District has moved totally online, and there's now a lot of parents who have essential workforce jobs or single parent and their capacity to be able to take care of the kids at home. So it's a real challenge that's going to put even more stress, I think, on our child care system. Dan, I'm glad you got a question that, Kristen, when you did the original slides, you talked about a number of challenges that people in the ALICE category are facing, one of which is transportation. I wanted to say I saw an article in the Reading Eagle just this week where we have Amazon developing a couple fulfillment centers or warehousing things in Berks County. And we're trying to see if there are ways to get public transportation to those workplaces, but weren't able to do that. How much is that an issue? The access to not just cars, but even access to public transportation, an issue in terms of people accessing, getting to work. And Dan, you might want to weigh in on this one as well, and maybe some other people as well.
Yeah, it's a tremendously large issue across the state. And this is something that unifies the whole state. Even in Philadelphia and Allegheny County, where they have more mass transit, there are transportation problems, and it affects people getting to work. It affects people getting the services they need. I think this is one of those clear areas where a partnership between business and nonprofits and government would go a very, very, very long way. I think that Amazon might be willing to invest in transportation strategies. We've talked to employers who have had kind of these aha moments where they figure out, you know, we need a shift in the schedule. We need some sort of location where we can direct our employees to come and grab a van to get the rest of the way to work because mass transit doesn't quite get them all the way where they need to go, or whatever the case may be. So this is the power of cross-sector collaboration, and some businesses are struggling right now. Some businesses are doing pretty well right now. I think that business partnership around Solutions for Alice is absolutely critical to get us through this economic recovery. And it's not just like a philanthropic thing at this point. It's about how our economy will recover and how profitable businesses will be in the future.
That's a great point, Kristen. And I know that in Lancaster County, there were companies that worked collaboratively to provide transportation for employees. And I'm aware of at least one company in Berks County that is not located in the city of Reading, but they actually have a van and pick up workers to take to their facility so that, you know, they have that transportation covered so that they can employ those folks.
So the only downside is in COVID environment, van pools are, right? So those solutions we saw coming online back in January, February, and then that sort of evaporated. I think, Kristen, this $15 an hour line is really important because by and large, what we find in Berks County is if you get to the $15 an hour, you can get a car, a decent, reliable car, and get to a lot of $15 an hour jobs. So it's the employers that are paying less than that where you have a workforce that is dependent on very limited public transportation. Interestingly, Amazon's announced that that's where they're setting their entry-level wage. And what really caught our attention, we at the board knew about the 1,000 jobs coming up to Charlottesville. And hopefully there's nobody from Amazon on the call here. But, you know, our thinking at the board was, well, good luck finding 1,000 people in Charlottesville, right? As opposed to closer to the city of Reading. But what really surprised me is when they announced they were also opening a second center over near Summit Steel, if you know where that is, behind Med Ed, and they're going to employ 400 people there. So it's going to be interesting as they come online. I think they were pretty smart about this by locating that second center in Muhlenberg Township, close to the city. And then I would just offer, again, many of you are aware, there's a brand new manufacturing company that's getting just about starting up operations, if they haven't already, called Carbon Light, which is located on Route 61. Thanks to great work from Pam Shupp, when Carbon Light wanted to build a facility here in Berks County, they were originally looking up in the Leesport area, but to get access to employees, they decided to build in Muhlenberg Township on 61, where there's more of a workforce. So, you know, this is really timely, Kristen, with the information that you provided us on Alice, because Berks County has a lot of jobs that are kind of those opportunity occupations that can start around that $15 an hour, but all the supports are needed for childcare. You know, and nobody thought if they had middle school kids, you know, that they were going to running into what am I going to do with my kid during the school hours, right? So. Thanks for your leadership, Tammy and United Way, in this area. It's really critical.
I'm not meaning to put more burdens on business, but one of the members of the audience asked the question, are there businesses that are providing childcare for their employees? Are we aware of any employers in the county doing that?
You know, very, very, very few. Employers really would have to be dragged into this because even before COVID-19, a lot of concerns about liability issues. You know, they just are reluctant to take on any kind of on-site, right? You think about issues with molestation, safety, COVID-19. They're reluctant to do it, but I will say to you, they're getting a lot more interested, at least trying to find some kind of cooperative solution. Tammy, would you agree?
Yes, yes. Karen?
Yeah, I would also say that Reading Hospital provides childcare for their employees and had for a long, long time.
Right.
Yeah.
I echo that with Penn State Health St. Joseph.
Okay, good.
Right, right. And any employers that are interested in looking at a model, I know Sheets is held up as a company that does provide model childcare, and you know they do it in their corporate office, which I can't remember where it's located, but you know they do charge employees, but they do help to offset some of the cost.
I think it's Altoona.
It is Altoona, yeah. And that's partnered up with a childcare provider. Sheets has a relationship with one of the childcare providers who knows how to provide this business, and they bring them on site and they deliver high quality childcare for their employees.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that one of the things we have not talked about is that, you know, again, with childcare, staffing and hiring is really a challenge right now. So again, it's just that they, all of the childcare centers are having a difficult time finding people to hire.
Dan?
Just much more broadly, just to share, not just the manufacturing sector, but what we're seeing at the career link these days is, despite 13% unemployment, very few individuals are actively engaged in job searches right now, right? That's the crazy world that we're living in.
Kristen, you in your presentation, you talked about the working with Alice people on career development and moving up through their career. Have you found any models that have worked particularly well in other places? Is not doing a great job, because he is doing a great job, but are there models in other places? Are there models that are working right now with the challenges that we're facing? It seems to me that one of the challenges we have is we have a pool of people in the city, and they need educational attainment and the workforce development stuff. They need transportation, and that's probably where the hotbed is for the Alice people. And as mentioned, there are jobs out there in other places that we need to try to get them linked up. Any suggestions about how to deal with that?
Well, I would say that United Way of the Capital Region here in this area is doing some leading work, and I don't know if they feel they've totally perfected it yet, but they partnered up with some larger employers in this area, where essentially the employer is making a commitment that United Way, if you can help us help our employees with this kind of outside the four walls of the workplace challenge that people have to get to work, and we hire them and we see a good employee, then we're going to invest together to educate them or do whatever needs to be done to help them move up the pay scale within our organization. So I know specifically here that's been done with UPMC Pinnacle, starting people in lower level medical jobs and then sending them on for training to help keep them moving up the path. In some cases, this is frankly not even that complex. In some cases, it's a matter of an individual needs some upfront cash to make an investment in work boots or, you know, a certification course of some kind that's going to get them then launched into a job so they can draw some income. But I think we should all keep that in mind, because right now when people have drawn down their savings just to try to live, there are going to be a lot of people in that position who might just need kind of an upfront loan to get them started, and then, you know, community organizations can think about how they handle that and support that. I think this CDA program that United Way of Berks County is doing is an excellent example. Last I talked to Tammy, they were talking about the next level, you know, there's a ladder here for people who start into this career field, and certainly a demand and a need. So those are a couple of really good examples, and it's just overall, it's holistically about all the services a person needs to be a good employee. And if we plop them into a job while they're worried about childcare, they're worried about their health, and expect them to be able to be a stable producing employee, then we're probably kidding ourselves. And so again, where business and the nonprofit sector can partner together to meet those challenges. There's one more model I do want to call attention to, and we're working on it in Pennsylvania. It's called the Employer Resource Network, and the concept here would actually be to allow small to medium-sized businesses to go together and cost share on like almost a career coach, life coach kind of person, a social worker of sorts, who would go to workplaces and meet individually with employees and help them with the things that just traditionally HR and what do we call them, our employee assistance programs don't handle. So things like transportation, access to childcare, caring for a parent at home, those kinds of things. And this has been done much more broadly in other states. It demonstrates a really great return on investment for businesses who make this. It decreases turnover and helps them with their bottom line overall. So it's a win-win for the employer and the employee.
I know that I think John is still on, and Karen, prior to COVID, there was some real momentum around a tech center. I don't know if either one of you want to chat about that.
Well, actually, Darlene Garcia, I think, is on the line too.
I'm sorry, Darlene.
Who is the president of the group. John's the chairman of the board, and White Missing Foundation's helping pay for it. Darlene, are you on? Well, John's on.
Yes, I'm on.
I did see Darlene.
Oh, Darlene's on. Okay, there she is.
Yeah, go ahead, Darlene.
Yes, so I'll go ahead and start video. So currently we are expecting to be able to launch our actual occupational programs by next year. Our original objective was to be able to do this by this fall. Obviously with COVID and other situations happening, that was a bit behind, but some of the occupations that we're thinking of launching would be in the area of, it would be construction, welding, CNA, patient care tech, as well as medical assistants. But we also are looking, and there's a couple of other occupations, and we did this through we had a strategic plan that was developed through Tweed, Weber, Danks, and that was back in April. So through this process, we've discovered that we want to ascertain that our programs are bridge programs. So we want to make sure that everything we offer is directly connected to adult literacy and concurrent to the vocational training. And in order to create the pathway to be able for the participants to have an actual training to start off with and have employable skills to start right away. And as they progress in their career and whether it be during or after, but that they obtain the actual equivalencies that they need to be able to fulfill sustainable growth. Now, we want to also make sure that our programs are bilingual. And with that said, we probably will offer dual language programs versus it just being completely bilingual, which means that the material would be available. We might have a cohort that will be all English, or one may be all Spanish, or a combination of these. So with that, with another thing we want to likely offer is virtual training, which would probably very likely when we begin. And we have the opportunity to offer participants, this is still in the works of some of the leadership that we have been working with, but it's very likely that participants can even obtain the actual technology to work from home as needed if we do go to a virtual platform. With that said, there's also conversations about access to internet.
And I was gonna eat.
You got a tomato sandwich?
It's a tomato sandwich that almost fell.
Oh,
Sorry. Sounds delicious.
I could use the sound.
There they are.
Darlene,
Yeah.
what you've done is actually use a commercial for the next community forum that we're doing in September, which Right Myron may not have told you this yet, but it's going to be a presentation about what you're doing.
That's right.
And what's happening with what we're trying to steal from Tech Central and Lancaster. So thank you for the commercial.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, just a brief summary. But if anyone would like to know more, please feel free to email me and or contact
or come back to our event next month.
or watch the commercial and then we can build from there.
Tammy, you in the chat room mentioned that the calls are up 70% in Berks County. Are there particular things that people are calling about? Is a pattern changed other than the volume? You're muted.
That's my MO. I always am muted. But anyway, so the most frequent requests when calling 211 have remained the same since since March, and they are housing and shelter, food, and utilities. They are consistently the top three. And we have used
a spike. Go ahead.
Did you hear what I said? Do you need me to repeat it?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I heard everybody.
Oh, you did. And just so you know, we've been using this information to help inform, our work at United Way. You may know that we had a Berks COVID-19 response fund that was supported by many of the people on this call. And we were able to raise almost $1.1 million from this generous community. And many of the grants are supporting basic needs in the community, food, housing, shelter. It's been a guide. We've also been working with community organizations around homeless prevention. Now more recently talking about how we can help support programming for remote learners, for working parents. And, again, 211 is a great way for us to identify and understand, what are the needs of our community and our neighbors. Kristen, you're on mute. Oh, I thought you wanted to say something.
The housing issue, are we seeing I know there are efforts to try to deal with a looming crisis in terms of eviction and foreclosures. Have you seen any evidence of that happening, or has that been stayed by some of the activity that stays on evictions that have been occurring?
Right. I'm gonna ask Ashley. Ashley, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want to go ahead and handle that one?
Could you repeat the question, Dave? You're breaking up a little bit.
Have we seen a spike in evictions and foreclosures in Berks County, or has they been sort of stymied by the stays that have been put in place?
So what we're seeing is kind of a buildup where folks, if they haven't been paying their rent now, we're almost 6 months out since the moratorium started. From the MDJ office that we've been speaking to, they are kind of having the evictions pile up in their office. Landlords are still filing, they're just not sending them out or scheduling them for hearings. Some of the activities that we have been working on, we know that in particular, Judge Butler's office here in Reading, she's going to start seeing cases September 8th. And we've established that we're going to be piloting a program called EPIC, which is based on a program out of Montgomery County, where we'll have somebody stationed at the MDJ office who will help navigate the person being evicted and even the landlord to resources to try and avoid that eviction. So it is going up. They're seeing cases, but because of the moratorium, they're not scheduling the hearings. So it's coming soon though.
I just had my lunch delivered.
Hi, this is Elise Chesson from Family Promise of Berks County. I just wanted to chime in and say that one of the rising issues is that there's a lot of funding that's coming through for families and households who are doubled up or in need of a security deposit and rapid rehousing. But that the issue that we're seeing is that there's a huge shortage of actual available housing and affordable housing. So that would be something that we would need to work on as well. And because the eviction front, you know, the moratoriums have certainly helped. But as mentioned by Ashley, you know, it's piling up. But we do have, for example, you know, many cases piling up in need of that rapid rehousing, but it's very difficult to secure available housing for budgets and households that fit that ALICE description.
I think that the national number is that they are predicting that evictions will increase by 30%. And Pat, are you still on? Is that the right figure?
I'm still here, but I honestly don't remember what the right figure is. And I think it varies a lot by who's making those trying to come up with those estimates. But clearly, it's not just going to be the increase in numbers of households, but also the increase in how far in arrears they are. So federal or state funding that is available to help resolve those circumstances are going to be stretched further and be able to serve fewer people.
We have a comment from Jack Nackstead of the Reading Housing Authority. Their Section 8 waiting list is going to be opening up again on Monday, 24th. So they're going to be looking for people to apply. So hopefully that will be a help.
So Jack, if people are on the waiting list, how long does it typically take for them to get into housing?
Jack, do you want to answer that?
I don't know if Josh is still on in the meeting, Josh Smith. I don't know that. Typically, if, and I'll say in public housing, typically if there is, last time we received 2,000 applications in our public housing waiting list. That takes about a year and a half. We take a lottery of those 2,000, and usually it takes a year and a half to get through that waiting list. And again, I don't know if Josh is on, but I'm not sure what the Section 8, I don't work with Section 8 too often, so I don't know that number. It might be similar. I can find that out if Josh is not Josh Smith, I guess he's not.
Okay. Tammy, Kristen, any last comments you want to make? How can people help?
So Kristen, do you want to talk, Kristen Rotz, do you want to talk a little bit about the advocacy role that, you know, people on this call could play as it relates to ALICE?
Yes. So one of the ways that you can stay in touch with the ALICE work is to go to our website, and there's a place where you can sign up for general updates from us. But we have an advocacy agenda that shifts. We leverage our opportunities based on where the General Assembly's attention is focused. One thing I want to call your attention to is that, you know, we're coming up on the fall legislative session in a year in which the General Assembly only passed 5 months of funding for most programs in the state budget. There's another 7 months left that haven't been allocated. We don't know how those conversations are going to play out this fall. So that's something we all need to tune into. If services that are essential to keep people safe and healthy are not funded for the remaining 7 months of the year, then that's going to have tremendously detrimental outcomes as well. There are some federal CARES dollars left at the state level that have not been allocated, which need to be allocated this fall so that they can be used for their intended purpose to help offset the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic from beginning in March through the end of this year. So that's going to be the hot topic this fall. We're going to be doing some advocacy, certainly around the childcare issue, because childcare has only been funded for 5 months of the 12-month fiscal year. And there's a lot of extenuating circumstances here to make sure that this sector stays viable for the economy to recover. We're going to be advocating for 211 funding. 211 also only has 5 months of the state funding that it receives. And 211 has experienced increased impacts from COVID-19 as well. So I would say for now, tune into that conversation. Long term, we hope to advance some ideas like a state level earned income tax credit, which will certainly do a lot to help the ALICE population in our state. And will also, it's a work incentivizing policy that puts some money back in the pockets of working families and then gets reinvested in the community and has quite a multiplier effect to it. So you can stay in touch with our advocacy by signing up for the newsletter on our website or follow us on social media. Frankly, that's probably the more modern way to do it. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. We always have, when we're doing an action request, we'll share that there, and you can just also keep in touch with us as we launch new ALICE data this fall. We'll definitely be heavily promoting that on our social media as well.
And Dave, I guess, you know, what I would challenge all of us is to think about ways that we can collaborate and the importance of, you know, looking at private and public partnerships. I think Kristen gave us some really good examples of that, you know, and you think about healthcare and how healthcare has defined the importance of social determinants and how that impacts return visits to the ER. And, you know, it's the same for employment. You know, if we're not addressing, you know, the social determinants or the, you know, the social needs of employees, there's going to be a problem with retention, and there's going to be a problem with having the ability to, you know, not only retain those employees, but help them get even greater skills and continue to up their skills. So, you know, I think this is a great opportunity for us to come together and do some real thoughtful planning around collaboration.
Thank you. I want to ask our audience to join me in thanking our panel. Did a terrific job. Thank you. You can do thumbs up or clap, whichever you'd rather do. There we go. Excellent presentation. It was very, very interesting and engaging and stimulating. I want to mention we will be doing these again in September, October, and November. September 17th, we'll be back on Zoom talking about the Latino workforce efforts here in Berks and having some representatives from Tech Centro in Lancaster come talk to us about what they've been doing and model that here in Reading. October 28th, we will have 5 college presidents in Berks County on a panel to talk about what they are doing in terms of community development. They're facing some challenges themselves, but they're all very active and interested in doing things to try to create a stronger community. And then on November 19th, we will have a group assembled by the Urban Land Institute to talk about creating healthy communities and the importance of a vibrant community for community health, public health. So one last chance. John, do you want to add anything, say anything as we end this?
Well, I just want to thank our presenters, and I thought it was a really terrific and enlightening presentation. Also want to just piggyback on what Dave said. We want to make sure that these conversations are useful and informative to our community. So if you have ideas regarding topics that you'd like us to cover or explore, we're willing to take that up and make sure that these are topical and timely and interesting to the community. So again, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Dave for doing the heavy lifting to get this arranged. Darlene, we look forward to hearing from you next time and others. So thanks, everybody. Stay safe. And I hope nobody's getting tired of these Zoom meetings because they seem to go on where I live throughout the whole day. So enjoy the rest of your day and be well.
Thank you, everybody. We will send copies of the PowerPoints to everybody who and the video will be made available on the Berks Alliance website, Berks Alliance, and you can watch it also on BCTV. So thank you all. Hope to see many of you, if not all of you, next month. Thanks.